Welcome, everybody. This is Denny with Wise is True, and joining me today from Texas is Teresa Yanaros, who many of you may know from her own YouTube channel and her collaboration work with Stillness in the Storm. So thanks for joining me, Teresa. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So we're just going to have a casual conversation. I don't have a list of questions or anything, but this is just an opportunity for us to get to know each other, for other people to get to know you, and find out what you're up to. And we were just talking, and you have a lot going on, so I'll let you have at it.
Yes, I do have quite a lot going on. For those of you who don't know, I'm Teresa Yanaros. My project is Divine Frequency. I am a journalist, and I love multimedia. I have a passion for all things multimedia. I'm a writer. So I'm working on a book right now that should be published in the next couple months. I've got a YouTube channel. I've got a website. I do life coaching. I do tarot readings. I do all kinds of stuff. I do motivational speaking. 2018 is going to be a big year for me, and I'm looking forward to getting to know much more of you guys in the community. And I'm just happy to be here. I kind of met everybody at conferences last year, and I've just been rocking and rolling, getting in with people and working with people to really expand their businesses out. That's sort of where my background is in. So I was in the tech industry for a while. And then from a place of corporate success, I kind of looked around me and thought, you know what? I think that I want to do more than work a 9 to 5. So I quit my job about 5 years ago, and it's been a wild ride since then. And it hasn't been easy, but it's been a blast. And here I am, and I'm just going to keep cranking through like an arrow. So,
all right, that's cool. So what's been the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge lately is definitely time management. There are so many projects that I want to work on, and so many amazing people that want to collaborate with me. And I get really excited because I want to make all those collaborations happen. And the main thing for me right now is just, I've been having to kind of refine where I'm putting my time. So, and I think everybody can resonate with that when it comes to being an entrepreneur, running your own business. A lot of times we can stretch ourselves thin on things that are important to us that we think make a huge difference. But the reality is we are going to get the majority of our feedback from a very small portion of what it is we're putting our time into. So it's been a constant reprioritization for me, but it's going really well. I just have to keep reminding myself, hey, what are you spending your time doing? What are the ultimate goals here? And for me, my goal is to bring information, disseminate information to humanity, and really bring about this positive change and help people become inspired. And I'm a catalyst for that. So that's a huge part of what I do. And that's why I'm excited for these conferences next year to do more of this motivational speaking so people can tap into their life force energy and what it is that they're supposed to be doing with their lives. So that's my focus. And I've got to make sure that I'm staying aligned with that every day.
So have you had any surprises lately?
I feel like every day is a surprise. I kind of just am rolling through the ether. No, let's see, surprises lately. Well, so I recently just built and launched an internship program for the media website Stillness in the Storm.
Right.
And we got some really great feedback for that. So that was really exciting to see people reaching out and wanting to help and wanting to jump on that program. So that was really exciting. So that was in the last 24 hours we did that. So that was pretty cool.
So you went back to Virginia?
Yes, I was in Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what is the internship program for? Is it for journalists or?
We basically need data entry specialists right now because we are in the middle of a lot of huge changes for Stillness in the Storm going into 2018. We're revamping the company in a huge way. And so we put a call out to have people come in and kind of help us with some data entry. And then eventually here in the next couple of months, we'll be looking for a lot more writers and things like that. So we're getting organized on the ground, and then we're going to kind of open it up to lots more.
So the data entry is for website content?
Basically, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Through Blogger and WordPress.
Okay. So do you journal?
Do I journal? Yes, I journal. I record voice memos every day. That's one thing that I do. And so I definitely journal. Yes. And I'm always writing, working on articles and videos that I put together, research projects and things like that. I'm actually working on a research project right now that I'm super excited about. And I'm going to be releasing that video here today or tomorrow. So pretty stoked about it.
All right. So if you could do something outside of like the journalist type activity, what would you do? Like
That's a great question.
Like something just for Teresa.
Yes. So I'm a musician and I play piano all the time. That's my favorite thing. And I'm in the studio recording an album right now, but not like right now, because once my journalist stuff kind of took off, I put the music stuff to a back seat. But I am on my third song on my album. At some point, I'm going to get back and bring that through. I want to release an album. So
okay.
There's that. I'm also an artist. Go ahead.
What kind of art?
I like acrylic paint. I like drawing, and I've been really into watercolor pencils lately. Oh. So I have some pretty cool art there.
Wow. So what's your subject for that kind of art? All kinds of stuff? Still life? Yeah. Landscapes? Portraits?
I do landscapes, and then with the drawing, I like because I'm building an oracle deck actually right now. So when I'm like sketching, I like using different objects that I can draw and then filling it out with color. So all different kinds of like caricatures and things like that, symbols.
So how many cards in your oracle deck?
I want to do, I think it's going to be 44, I believe, actually. 44 or 50. And the name of the deck is Soul Elements Oracle. This is all stuff I haven't really been talking about, but I'm really excited. Yeah, I've been thinking about creating an Oracle deck for a few years now. And so I'm finally in the process of building that out. So we'll see. Hopefully for 2018, that would be a cool thing to launch.
Yeah. What's your favorite tarot deck?
Oh gosh, some people might say that I have a tarot card problem, and I say I have a tarot card solution because I have so many tarot decks. Let's see. I will show you my favorite deck. Actually, it's in arm's reach. My very first tarot deck that I ever got was the Hanson Roberts deck. I just love it. It's based off of Rider-Waite, and what I love so much about this deck is that the colors are just so beautiful, and it's very kind of whimsical and feminine.
It's a traditional deck?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just think it's really pretty.
Is it old? Is it an older deck?
I don't know. That's a good question. I have no idea. What's your favorite tarot deck? I'm sure you got some decks over there, huh?
Yeah, I do, but I'm a what they call... I haven't really used any of them. I just got them, and I got some really cool books, and but I haven't really done anything with them because I'm just one of the ones that was. This is a. Can you see that?
I can. Let's see. How in the world do you pronounce that word? Egyptio?
Yeah, Egyptioskier tarot deck, and this is like a collector.
Wow.
It's Egyptian. It wasn't easy to find, but it's has this little tiny book that comes with it.
Nice.
And I don't know. This is a long story. But it's a really cool deck, and it has some variants.
Wow, I love the gold. Those are nice colors.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so it's kind of an Egyptian thing. And then here's another kind of like a spin-off of the same.
Oh, I've seen that one. I don't have it, but I've seen it. That's a cool one.
And then the other ones aren't quite so exotic, but oh yeah, this one. You know that one, right?
Oh yes, yeah, I've seen that one. That's really cool. I like that first card on there. That,
cover. The book is kind of cool with it too.
Whoa, dude! I need to put that on my list. You're making me get the itch to get another deck.
Okay. Oh yeah. Then there's this one. This is also kind of an Egyptian theme.
You must be a Syrian starseed, my friend. Ooh, man, I love that gold.
Yeah. Oh, then there's this one. This is the more generic one, but this is kind of cool. It's called the Gilded Tarot.
I have that one.
Yeah.
That was my second deck. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So allegedly, there's some kind of. It's actually Orion, not Syrian, but anyway.
Nice.
Let's see. Oh, here. This is the. Yeah, it's another Egyptian.
Wow. Okay. So you're all into the Egyptian side. That's really cool. I'll have to get me an Egyptian tarot deck and we can nerd out.
Well, I'm in desperate need of training. It's what I'm in desperate need of. I have all the goodies, but I haven't devoted the time to actually learn anything. But anyway, that's fine. I mean, I'm the same way with astrology. I've got a huge astrology deck. I learned how to cast natal charts manually before computers. So I use the Max Heindel Rosicrucian method for calculating the natal charts. And I used to do that when I was 16 years old, which is back in the mid-70s or whatever.
Cool.
So I did that, and then it's been kind of like in the background my whole life. But that's cool. It's like a bucket list. I mean, a bucket list is best when the bucket is a reasonable size. Right? Don't get a big bucket because it's just depressing. Get a small bucket, fill it up, and empty it.
There you go. Yeah. That sounds very logical. I can get behind that. It's really funny because with tarot, actually, it was only for me. It was like, I think 3 years ago, I was writing my book, What is Magic? And I was doing research. I was raised Catholic. And then
same here.
Oh, really? That's awesome. And along the way, I discovered reincarnation. I read a book called Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. And have you read this book?
No.
Okay. Well, it's basically a doctor who would regress patients into the life between lives. And so like after they would die in one life, and then he compiled case study after case study for 10 years. And then he released this book where you could read basically what happens after you die and before you reincarnate again. And so I'm reading this book and I'm like, wow, it was answering a lot of questions that I had related to the Catholic theology. And I started having out of body experiences. And
how old were you?
How old was I? I think I was 26 or 27. I'm 30 now.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I started having these out of body experiences. And so I started writing a book because I was like, this is crazy. What is happening to me? And so I started doing a lot of research. And so I started writing about it. And along the way, I had a friend who said, I was feeling like I wanted to go get my palm read or something because I had no experience in this kind of woo-woo stuff at all.
And you were still doing the corporate thing?
No, I had my own business at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so, she told me, oh, well, I have a tarot deck. I was like, you do? Because, from your Catholic background, you're told like, oh, that's horrible. Tarot decks.
It's right next to Ouija board.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, she tells me this and I'm like, what? Well, what is that? I started asking her all these questions. She's like, well, basically every card means something different. And then you can apply it to your life and come up with like creative solutions. And I'm like, that I can get behind that. That makes perfect sense to me, like that take the magic out of it. Right. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go get myself a tarot deck. I'm going to see what this is all about. And then I'm going to move on with my life. And so I bought a tarot deck, which was actually this tarot deck that I showed you. And when I opened up the tarot deck, it was like all of a sudden I'm looking at these cards and it was like these images had so much in them that it was like I was receiving downloads of information of like what these archetypes were. And I had this really strong connection. It was almost like I was remembering something that I already knew. And so I spent like 5 or 6 days just completely just studying, pulling spreads and researching what this was. And 6 days later, I go to get on a plane, go to the airport, my flight's canceled. So I'm sitting in the airport and I'm pull out my tarot deck and I'm kind of just reading for myself. And people start sitting down across from me asking for tarot readings. And so I had only been reading for 5 or 6 days. And I was like, well, okay, I guess I'm going to read tarot for these people. I don't really know. And I told them, I'm like, I'm brand new to this. I don't, and I was having these amazing experiences where people were like, someone started crying. Someone was like, it was crazy the amount of synchronicities that were occurring and like what was happening. And what I found was that I actually had a knack for it. So I started a business and I started doing tarot as a business.
Wow. And you're still doing that or no?
Yes, I am. So on my website, thedivinefrequency.com/sessions.
Wow.
I do tarot readings.
And what spread do you use?
I use all kinds of different spreads. Really? Yes. Yeah. What I love about tarot is that like I love making up spreads. When you ask a certain question, I can go, okay, this is the spread that we're going to pull for this. And you can be really creative and you can come up with something that works for the framework of like what you're trying to understand. Wow. So I use all kinds of different spreads, but then I also make up some of my own.
So when you were raised, your parent sounds like your parents kind of encouraged the creativity side in you.
It didn't need much encouragement, I'll
Really?
put it that way. But yes, my parents were very
Well,
encouraging.
yeah. Actually, well, maybe what happens a lot. Like for me, what happened for me was like on the art thing. You know, if you want art is fine if you don't mind being poor. That was the byline for artists when I was a little kid. That was kind of like the spiel that most young boys got, was like, if you want to be a musician or a painter or something like that, well, that's fine if you don't mind being poor.
Right.
And you would hear that over and over and over from different places, you know? And so that's kind of so I think that's cool when I hear about kids who are raised in environments where they were really encouraged in that way. And then to have an experience as an adult where you actually make money at it. You know,
right.
I mean, that's a pretty positive, reinforcement.
Well, I had, I was a musician and an artist and a writer growing up and everything, but I've always had a knack for journalism. I've always wanted to be a journalist since I was very young. And so when I went to college, I graduated with my degree in journalism, and then I
was that
went
in Texas?
Yes, Texas.
Okay.
It was University of Texas, Arlington. So,
okay. All right.
Arlington, Texas. And I actually went into technical editing, which was cool for a little bit. And then I went into computers, and I loved working in computers. And what I really enjoyed about that was training. I loved training people. I was a teacher for a while. And so I've always had this like underlying love and passion for sharing information and helping people learn. And then what's so amazing about that is that coming full circle on the other end of it, and after really diving into this whole spiritual side, I mean, I've been spiritual my whole life. This is a long story, but coming out on the other end where I realized that I could actually be a journalist and I could talk about the things that I wanted to talk about. It wasn't just about mainstream media. No, I could go out there and I could do this professional career in an amazingly cool industry where you can talk about things like tarot and astral projection and, the collective consciousness and expansion and ascension and things like that are like incredibly important. So It's been really transformative for me.
So that brings up another thing that I know you've been talking about is this net neutrality, and then what's happening with YouTube right now.
Yeah, so this is really interesting because my brother, he is really into cybersecurity. And so that's like, he's younger than me, but he knows a lot about all this stuff. And when we were at Thanksgiving, he was like talking about net neutrality and how like things could get really bad if they take it away. And what I'm concerned about is we all run businesses online. A lot of us do, and if everyone's going to be having to pay, like they're being nickeled and dimed for access to websites, everything's going to change. And so I think there are lots of different ways to look at this, but I try to see things from the angle of transmutation and leaning into the greater good and the higher message here. So even if, like, let's say that it does happen, like, I don't want to get fear-based. I don't want to start like freaking out about like the negative side. It's like, if that does happen, we authorize that on a collective consciousness level. And now we need to figure out what we would need to do because of that. And part of it, to me, I think about maybe we're trying to get away from being online so much. Like you were saying earlier, like we spend so much time behind a screen. And if we could take all that energy put into our screen and we could go into our communities and figure out what the heck we're supposed to do in our communities, I think that could be beneficial. So I don't want to catastrophize. But it would be, I mean, it would suck, but we would figure it out.
Sure. It also forces some like underground technologies, like what is it one Steam It or D-Tube, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, because humans are like infinitely creative when they're pushed up against the wall, and they can come up with some stuff, some workarounds, or even forcing the issue around, like YouTube in a way is kind of like a monopoly, So I mean, YouTube and this whole net neutrality thing, they're kind of like chugging along like two trains going down the same track, I mean,
yeah,
and some people will tell you, well, YouTube's committing suicide right now. Well, yeah, there is a good side of that, because it could force creators out into other venues that all of a sudden become competition for YouTube, right? And there's other like there's other little sweet stops. The gamers go here, the alternative news sources go there. the woo-woo stuff goes over here, and it could really open up the field. I mean, that's one plausible thing. Did your brother talk about the steemit technology, or that I guess it's like a blockchain type hosting for it's something that you might want to ask him about it, because it seems really interesting in terms of let's see, what do you call it? It would be like an uncensored alternative to YouTube.
Nice. Yeah, my brother is one of those like endless wells of technological information. It's like you feel smarter just hanging out with him. We all have people like that in our lives.
You feel smarter.
Like he'll just like talk to me.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm really I'm like really excited to get a chance to talk to you, because our paths have crossed here and there on social media and everything.
Yeah, and I'll publicly apologize to you right now too.
Why?
Because when we met at Contact in the Desert, I was so distracted, and I felt like I just gave you short shrift when we met. It was just a very awkward scene, and I just felt bad. Like, I don't know. It was one of those things where you're kind of overwhelmed by all the new faces and people and I was like, oh, hi. And like you were nobody, I mean, I don't know. No, I felt bad about our how we met. And I apologize.
Well, thank you for the apology, but I will say that I didn't think anything negative of it. So you're in the clear. Okay. Also, I was probably just as deer in headlights as you were, because that was my first conference like this. So it was like, there was a lot going on. So I'm with you there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It was big. It was kind of overwhelming in some ways, because there's all these places you could go there and all these things that were happening, and there was a lot of like paid content, but there was a lot of like just free stuff. Like once you got in there, it was like, it was like, I don't know how to describe it. There was a lot of everything there, actually, a lot of good and bad, but it was all in one place in the desert.
It was really interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
It was really cool to get to meet people in person that are doing the great work. So it was cool to have that platform of everybody to just come together and be like, I see you over there doing cool things.
Yeah. Are you going to try to go to the next one, or?
Absolutely.
Oh,
I will be at Contact in the Desert. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
For sure. What about you?
No.
No?
No.
Are you going to go to Conscious Life Expo?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I've spent my nickels at the conferences. I think, I have a different path around that, so to speak. So in terms of what I need to do and what I'm going to be focusing on. So I did go to Eric Raines's retreat up in McLeod.
You did? What was that like?
That was awesome.
Tell me about it.
Well, he combines yoga, like the Wim Hof breathing, Qigong, and energy work. It's like its own adaptation. Combining all those modalities, so to speak. And I'm already kind of a yoga fan in my own way. My mom started teaching yoga in 1965 in Hawaii. Okay. And on Oahu. Well, actually, we moved there in '69, and I think she taught a little bit there, and then she taught when we came back to California. So I was always it was transformative for her. It changed her life completely.
Wow.
Yoga did. And anybody who will listen, she will tell you her yoga story, which is quite profound, for her, because she went through a huge change. So anyway, yeah. So Eric's retreat was all about this stuff, and the other thing that we did that I thought was so cool is we actually went to the McLeod River to the falls, and we did the cold water immersion thing with the Wim Hof breathing.
Wow! And that was, how many people went?
There was 30.
Okay.
And we were in the Mercantile Building, and that's where I found your business card. What?
That is crazy. That's my business card. There it is.
So I found a stack of Teresa's cards in the McLeod Mercantile Building, and that's where we were in the upstairs room up there. So we had the meals catered up there, and the food was fantastic. And so the first 3 or 4 days was the most of the breathing work and the qigong and opening everything up. And they would do this fire circle thing at night, which I didn't participate in, but I have a friend up there who's got a cabin, so that's where Sierra and the kids and Eric stayed. So all of us were there at that house, and I kind of camped out in the back so they could have the house to themselves. And so it was 7 days. I got to go to hot springs on my own on one day before the whole thing started. That was a kick. It was actually a natural hot springs right next to a river down by the Pitt River. And somebody was telling me about it here, and they said, "Yeah, you got to go to the hot springs up there." Even the locals don't know about it. And I go, "No shit," and they were true. they didn't know about it, and so I looked it up, and guess what the name of the hot springs was? Hunt Hot Springs.
Denny Hunt. Oh, dang it! That's what I was going to say.
Hunt Hot Springs. Yeah, you're right. So, and I was going like, well, shit, I gotta go. So a friend of mine lent me a motorcycle, and I went down on a little motorcycle down this logging road to the hot springs. And the whole thing was just magical. And the icing on the cake for me was doing this Wim Hof thing with the cold water immersion and this breathing technique that Eric picked up from Wim Hof and taught us how to do. And so there was a good portion of people there that were already healers, already in the healing profession. And so the latter part of the class, Sierra taught along with Eric, but in the healing modalities, energy healing and that kind of thing. So, and it was terrifically affordable. I mean, he made it affordable. So we had people that came. We had a person there from France, a person there from South Africa, a couple people from the UK that came in. So, and he called it Squad One because it was the first time they ever did anything like that. And it's amazing. And we're going to have a roundtable interview on the 11th with some of the people that were in that class.
Cool. Like on your show?
Yeah, on the kind of on the cutting edge of a lot of healing stuff, where they're doing implant removals and entity attachment removals and energy work and different types of clearing exercises and really interesting stuff. A lot of it that kind of over my head, but I'm kind of like peripherally aware of just from the interviews that I've been able to do since going back to April. So yeah, it was. I really highly recommend if Eric ever does anything like that again. He's a really good teacher, and for a fellow his age, he's really honed his craft. The guy, he's quite good. Yeah.
At the Eclipse of Disclosure Summit, I had a session with Matt Mornian.
Oh yeah,
actually before my workshop that I gave. It was really nice. It was a wonderfully relaxing, rejuvenating experience. Matt is really, really good. And then I actually got to work a little bit with Eric. He did a clearing on me as well. And it was really cool. And I loved hearing Eric talk. It was, I do a lot of research. I read a lot of books, you do all that kind of stuff. But then when you go to these conferences and you get to hear it on it, like you're hearing it in person, someone is orating and they have put together a presentation and this is their passion and this is their purpose. And they're standing up there and they're speaking to a crowd. Something is just so different about that experience. It was so different for me. I remember sitting there and I'm like, I've heard all of this stuff, but it was like a warm bath, you're just listening to it and you're like, this is so true. This is true. This is truth. And this needs to be spoken from the hilltops. And it was such an amazing experience to get to hear him live. Yeah. It was really cool.
Yeah. And Matt is one of these, Eric's students, so to speak. Matt really got inspired, I think, initially at the SSP conference in Mount Shasta in August of 2016. And, I interviewed both of them when I was up there, and cool. I got to see the transformation in Matt after a session with Eric.
Wow.
And then after that, because Matthew used to stutter a little bit, he had kind of a halting speech, and he had a session with Eric while we were up there at that conference, and it went away. I saw that, and then Matt ended up becoming like Eric's, like star student,
wow.
Just consumed the information, the material for a year. And now he's gone through a completely transformed his life. He's moved. He went to LA. He works in a place up there. So anyway, yeah, I did an interview with him today, so that'll be out, and it's like I think our second follow up since then. So yeah, I'm
Awesome.
so glad I met these people, and I've been a big supporter of Sierra and Eric, and I've done a lot of video work with them, and he wrote some really cool articles that we turned into a like an audio book thing that you can see on YouTube with the nice background drone footage and everything. So he's got I think it's it's like a 6-part article, and he's written like 3 of them. So like there's part 1, part 2, part 3A, and part 3B, and they're all a woman volunteered. So it's not a machine voice; it's a woman actually reading these articles, which are quite long, and we posted them on my channel. So for people who don't like to sit there and read, you can get a lot of like the detailed stuff that Eric's done around the implants that he's been able to identify and see in people, what the implants look like, where they are in the bodies, etc. So
that's amazing, because so Deepak Chopra has this meditation for transformations of higher consciousness, I think is what it's called. And this was such an amazing guided meditation. And it was sort of like that, where it was like, it was material, it was information, but it was spoken in a meditative way. And the idea behind it was that it was meant to, seed your consciousness with these ideas. So it's so beneficial. I mean, you can even listen to that stuff when you're walking, and you just listen to it over and over, and then you learn more and more of the information, and you just kind of sponge it in and become it. That's cool.
Yeah, I really wanted to do that because, there's a couple generations now that have really been, soured on reading. I think a lot of people just don't like to read. If it's on video or something, it engages them, or if it's something they can listen to, they'll pay attention. But reading, and I think some of the best stuff out there is stuff you read, not stuff you watch. For me, that's been my experience. Some of the, when someone takes the time to actually write it, usually a lot of times more care has been devoted to that than just talking or whatever. So I was really excited to be able to put what he wrote in something that could be consumed in a form other than just sitting down with a book or actually reading it. So,
it's brilliant, because people learn in different ways. People retain information in different ways. Right. You have to provide a breadth of information in different ways so people can access it. And that's the business we're in. We are in the business of trying to get all this information out to as many people as we can. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. It's great. And Eric's healing work too, it's very visual. That was my experience, And I had a bit of a block around that, because in the healing or energy, I'm not very visual. In art, I'm very visual, and I can do a lot of stuff like in the 3D world. Give me a canvas and paint, I can do stuff, But in my head, envisioning the golden light in the heart center and that kind of thing, I'm like, blah, 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 So it's kind of interesting, because there's so many different ways to do it, and you have to find your sweet spot. I'm not there yet. I'm not really sure that's my calling anyway. But yeah, if anybody has an opportunity to work with Eric, I highly recommend it. And Matthew too, who's now, he's busy. He's down in L.A. He just told me about a clearing he's going to do on a house as a result of a healing he did on a person. And there was some transformative stuff that went on, and these people were shocked with the results that they got, and so they invited him to their house, and so he's going to be doing some stuff in the house, which he found about, and the stories are just amazing.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So you were raised Catholic.
Yeah.
And I'm curious your opinion on channeling.
Channeling, well, people who follow me know that I'm very biased on this subject, and I have by virtue of the fact that I've done a lot of work with a fellow by the name of Carl Mollison, who's also very controversial and has a very kind of a harsh message around this whole channeling issue. And by virtue of the fact that I've spent this time with him since April, doing many, many, many channeling interviews, I've come out on the side of supporting what he has to say about it. And I understand that it's not everybody's cup of tea. People don't like to hear this, but well more than 90% of all channelers are channeling entities that have incorrectly identified themselves for the purpose of misleading them. And it's kind of a sobering, unpopular statement, but that is one area where the dark forces have applied a lot of energy and have for hundreds of years against humanity, because that's where the big threat are. The light workers and the people doing that kind of work are actually the biggest threat to negative forces in the world, negative alien agenda in particular. And so they're going to, and they have applied a lot of their, sophisticated psychic work against channelers, because if channelers do reach and work with the divine realm, they're a huge threat to the negative alien agenda. But so that's kind of like, that's a narrative.
Can't that go both ways though? Because if people are channeling, and you're saying that 90% of them are channeling entities that are deceiving us, then wouldn't the cabal be happy people are channeling, because they're going to be all confusing and confused?
Yeah, as long as they're duped, then it's great. And it's interesting because it's not really a nefarious operation. It's just something to keep people staring at their navels and not really doing anything.
Right.
There's a lot of positive, like the best lie is always 90% true. And that's just the way it is. As long as they can keep you distracted from that 10%, it's all good. Have at it. You could speak all the truth and wonderful love and light type of spiritual truths, which we're all hungry for in this world, so it makes perfect sense. But I personally have been shocked to find out how much of this stuff, which on the surface looks wonderful, is actually given to that channeler or to that medium or whatever from an Anunnaki psychic.
Right.
And so this has led me to other other arenas, because I don't want to single source my whole rabbit hole experience, which is kind of the way it looks. From an outsider looking in at Denny and what I've been doing, it looks like, oh, it's the Carl Mollison show. And I understand that. I get that. But recently we found a fellow by the name of Marshall V.N. Summers, who's been, his experience started back in the 80s. Angelic downloads and what he calls the allies of humanity. And it's almost an exact message as what we've been getting through the channeling series with Carl.
So I have a question, because it sounds to me like you're not really in a whole lot of support of channeling, because you're talking about the deception and all that.
No,
but yet
I'm in support of channeling, because if it's done right, it can accelerate disclosure in a fantastic way. Because we're trying to get to the truth of things in a maze of all this disinformation and blind alleys and dark corners that don't lead anywhere, and when a channeler comes along who's like channeling the divine realm, it's revelatory. It's healing, and that's the other thing too, is that and I said this to Matt today, is that we don't need more channelers, we need more healers. Humanity needs healing, not more information to satisfy our salacious desires.
It sounds like you're giving mixed signals, because the words that I'm hearing you say are indicating that you actually have a long list of things that are against channeling. Like you said, we're looking at our navels. Like, are you talking about like channelers? It can be a distraction. Like if you're spending a lot of time channeling and trying to access other realms, and then instead of like dealing with 3D land and fixing our own problems, we're kind of like looking out and like distracting ourselves and getting caught up in it. Is that what you're?
Well, that happens everywhere. Like, I mean, I noticed that within myself. If you look at my library, I've got all these books. Mm-hmm. Well, that's fodder for a 12-step program right there.
Right.
The Nowhere Man.
Yeah.
I have all the facts and everything, but I don't have a life.
Yes.
Yeah. So the same thing can happen with channeling.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree.
Yeah. So it's yeah, I mean, I'm kind of compelled by the information based on the evidence and stuff that the narrative coming from the series that I'm doing with Carl and from Marshall V.N. Summers is actually where the pay dirt's at. That's actually where humans have an ability to actually wake up and do something positive with that awakened state. But it's not a very friendly, joyful story. But everybody's going to get there on their own speed and their own steam. So, I've lost a lot of followers and I've gained a lot of followers around this transformation that I've gone through since the SSP conference in Mount Shasta in 2016.
So you say that you think these channelers are channeling the divine. And my question then becomes, how do you know, and what do you use to discern that?
Well, I think it's my rabbit hole started in 1996, and I kind of started around the whole money thing, G. Edward Griffin, The Creature from Jekyll Island, this kind of research and stuff, the Austrian School of Economics and all that kind of stuff, and finding out what the banking thing was doing.
Yeah.
From there, I went through all of the dark stuff, Bill Cooper, Phil Schneider. So I look at that; these are the researchers that I really hold up high: Phil Schneider, Bill Cooper, Dr. Carla Turner, Eve Lorgan, Barbara Bertolak, Jacques Vallée, Dr. David Jacobs. There's an Italian guy I just found out about who's actually kind of like in the same genre as James Bartley, Eve Lorgan. Now, a lot of these people lost their lives telling us the truth.
Wow.
Okay? That's what happened to Phil Schneider. That's what happened to Bill Cooper. That's what happened to Dr. Carla Turner and probably Barbara Bertolak.
Those are the ones you read, the ones that are killed. It's like, okay, those are the books we need to read. Sad to say.
Yeah. So, and what were they trying to tell us? Why did they get in trouble? Who did they piss off?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
How does their story line up with the stuff that's coming out now? It's like a cop. Motive, what is it? Motive, opportunity, and there's three things that you do as a cop. I always remember.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you want to use, and you use deductive reasoning, right? And sometimes the evidence is anecdotal, but you want explanations that don't leave things lying on the floor. You want explanations that do take into account the loose ends.
Yes, yeah. In a perfect world.
Well, I mean, actually, we're quite, as humans, once we've honed those skills, we're quite good at figuring out what the problem is. And once you know what the problem is, that's then you're halfway to the solution. But the problem I see, like in the light worker and disclosure community, is that we really haven't discovered what the problem is yet.
What's the problem?
The negative alien agenda.
Why do you think that's the problem?
Based on those researchers that I just mentioned.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's a wholesale manipulation of humanity that's been going on for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And it's continuing. It's accelerating. It has to do with AI and a lot of the narratives, the very hopeful narratives that are prevalent in the disclosure community that actually aren't taking into account some of the serious researchers that I just mentioned. That kind of stuff is not taken into consideration in any kind of a serious and thoughtful way, where you're actually giving them the due for the work that they've done.
Yeah. I was at MUFON and I was talking to...
Yeah, that was quite a... in Vegas, right? Is that the one you went to?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a big deal. That was a game changer. That
conference was huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
A bunch of people left MUFON.
Yes, they did. Yeah, I just love Jan Harzen. He's the executive director of MUFON, and he is such a great guy. And he really has a huge passion for making sure that he's grabbing as many different whistleblowers and spreads of information and bringing that forth so that people can discern and decide what they believe. And I think that's amazing. Obviously, from my background, I'm like, yes, get him. And it was really exciting to be there. And I was able to spend time with the panelists, Bob Wood, Bill Tompkins, Corey, Sala, everything. And it was really cool to talk to Bill Tompkins because that was the last time that I saw him in person. He passed, I think, 2 weeks after that, or 3 weeks after that.
Right.
And the conversation that I had with him when he was talking about the negative ET agenda, he was talking about that specifically, talking about how important it was that we got that information out there. And he was like, you guys are doing exactly what needs to be done right now, because there's some really bad stuff going on that we need to be talking about. Because like you said before, we can't resolve something that doesn't exist. When you don't even know that there's a problem, meaning let's say that you're going about your day and you haven't even defined some issue that you're having. You haven't even put a word to it. You haven't created something that you can tackle. So right. I 100% agree with you there.
Yeah. And I'll just for most of my viewers know this, but I'll say this because we're going to add viewers because you're on the show now, because you have like 7,000 subscribers, right?
I think it's 8,000 now.
8,000. Yeah. And I have 3,000. So so a lot of people are going to come over and watch this, and they may know you, but not know me. But my introduction to Carl was, I was like self-medicating with alcohol at night. And this was going in phases and peaks. About 3 or 4 years ago is when it kind of got bad. And I was spending a lot of money trying to figure out what the hell was going on. I already been through the AA thing, and I know what they had to offer was not what was up in my tree, you know.
Gotcha.
Because I'd done that back when I was in my 20s. I have a lot of respect for what they do, but they don't have the whole story. So I did a reading with a woman named Vidya Frazier who said, Denny, you have an entity attachment. I don't do entity removals, but this is why you're drinking. But I know somebody who does entity removals, and his name is Carl Mollison. So within like 2 days, I hooked up with him. He did a remote treatment on me, and it changed my life forever. That was it. It was all over. It was done. It was an uncle from a previous life that had attached to my energy field and was feeding this cycle of self-medicating. So we would have, I guess you would liken it to the Schumann frequency. I don't know. But we were getting these pulses of like higher frequency. It was pushing all my shit up. And in order to deal with it, I was drinking. That was my coping mechanism.
Interesting.
Right? So I never knew about entity attachments. I never knew that entity attachments had anything to do with addiction. No one ever told me that. So I found out that through a reading, and then I got cured by Carl. Carl's bread and butter is healing, not channeling. He was a healer long before he was a channeler. And so that's why I go back to that statement, like what we need is more healers, not channelers. Channelers cool for what it is, but humanity needs healing. We've been through a lot, you know?
I think something that would be very beneficial for the world is to understand how healing works, because we use a lot of different names for it depending on how you were raised, your experience, and your biases, your limiting belief systems, whatever you want to call it. But if you just take it back down to like when you hold a child or you kiss a boo-boo or whatever this is, like these are moments of healing. And whenever I started connecting to this in more of an etheric way, I started learning about Reiki. And it doesn't even necessarily matter that the word is Reiki. It can be anything, energy work, whatever you want to call it. But I started working with it and trying to understand like how I can heal with my hands. And we use our hands to heal. And when I started performing these energy sessions on my friends and my family, there was one time that my sister, she was, face down on the bed, just laying there. And I'm administering Reiki energy, or what I mean by that is flowing, channeling source energy up through the feet. It's coming out through the hands. And I went to sweep her aura, which is basically just cleaning out any negative energies or unwanted colors or frequencies. And when I swept my hand down like this, my hand is about 3 feet off of her back. And she goes, woo! And she turns over and she was like, oh, I thought you put icy hot on my back. And I was like, what? And she goes, yeah, it felt like you took icy hot, and she did the exact same hand motion that I had done in the same, like just as slow as I had done it. It was really interesting because when you work with energy yourself, you start to gain insights, like what you were talking about with the entity attachment, and something worked for you, something happened. It was a confirmation that there's something more than what meets the eye. And I think if more people lean into getting that for themselves, it doesn't become some external belief system. It becomes an intrinsic belief system. And that's what we need more of. We need more people that are going to intrinsically believe.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, because I mean that's what the solution is about. Is a lot of the dark messages around the negative agenda has a solution that is directly tied to what you just said, and it's through a partnership with Creator in the divine realm. Because we got into this mess. It's not entirely our fault. There was a lot of acquiescence that came. Silence in the greater community, in the greater world, is acquiescence. It's saying yes. If you don't explicitly say no, then things can happen, which you don't really approve of, but you didn't say anything. So it's a free will experiment that's going on here, and we haven't really figured out the rules yet, and we haven't figured out who we are yet, and what our powers are, and the message that I'm getting from what I've learned is that, we do need the assistance of the divine realm, and we're only going to get it if we ask for it. And so that's the message, is that, we do have a relationship with God. God is the reason we're here. If we ask for his help or her help, however you view it, Allah, God, source creator, prime creator, whatever terminology you want to use, that help will be given, but you have to ask for it. If you want to go it alone, that's a free will decision, and that's allowed. I mean, and that's part of what's happened. What's happened is that we've decided to go it alone, and now we're kind of reaping the rewards of that, if you will, which really aren't rewards. So, the ascension thing, I think there's great parts of that are real. And there's great parts of that's actually a pacification program. Being a free will experiment, we do have to do something with our awakened state. And that's why I'm so encouraged to meet people like you and interact with people like you, because you're very active. You're very out there. You're going to speak your mind, and that's what we need to do. Have you seen that video by Jordan Peterson? I'll send it to you. This is a fellow, he's a university instructor, and I think he might be from Texas. But he's talking about the price of not speaking your mind.
Oh, I like that. I've heard of Jordan Peterson.
It's an amazing talk. For sure. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, send it my way. I'll add it to the list. I have so many things I need.
So people send you links endlessly, right? Teresa, check this out. Teresa, check this out.
Yes, right? I wish that I had an intern just to watch all the things that I want to watch, and then give Summarize me a report. Yeah, so that I could. I don't know. I don't know if you feel that way sometimes, but wanting to have a clone of you.
I have two volunteers that work with me, and one of them in the UK does precisely that.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I'll send her something. I said, could you do research on this? And she just sent me a little 2-page synopsis on something. Wow. That I just didn't have the time to do. But I get a lot of, I know this happens to you too. Someone will just send you a link and say, check this out. And they're like, well, why should I check it out? I got 10 of these I got to do today, plus all the other stuff. But yeah, so don't be shy. Ask for volunteers. You'll get volunteers to do it. And I also got volunteers to do translation work.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah. So we actually have some of our interviews in Turkish now.
No way. Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah, and I think he's a fan of yours.
No way.
Yeah, his name is Hakan.
That's so cool. Yeah. Well, hi, Hakan. How's it going?
Yeah, I think he's actually done some work with Sabrina and Sterling.
Nice.
Yeah, his name's Hakan from Turkey.
Cool.
Yeah. So I feel like this was a dual interview.
I can't turn off the journalist. I'm sorry. People say that about me. They're like, you go on the show and then you're asking questions. I was on Jimmy Church Radio and I had to ask him a question. I was like, I don't hate me, but I do have to ask you at least one question.
Well, that's cool.
Like, oh,
well, that's cool. I mean, yeah, because how many times does Jimmy Church get a chance to talk about himself? So that's
right.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have your channel, you interview people, and like people need to get to know you too. So I got to ask some questions.
Yeah.
It's all for the purpose of bringing out. That's what I just love about discourse and conversation, because you get to uncover parts of this other soul, but as you're also uncovering parts of yourself, and it's such a beautiful dance. I love interviews. It's one of my favorite things, as it's one of yours too. So that's
Yeah.
definitely something that we connect on. I'm so passionate I'm genuinely interested in people, and that's where I come from. So when I lean into these interviews, it's like, I just want to know you. I just want to like get to the bottom of who you are. What's your story?
Right.
And what for
So,
you, like, what do you love? Oh, go ahead. You sound like
well, I was going to ask you, like, if you could interview somebody, like, who's like, you have the hot sheet, right? Like, there's 5 people on there or whatever. Like,
oh,
who's on there? Who's on there?
definitely. I definitely have a hot sheet. I will tell you that. I think it's really interesting because I'm very good at manifesting. I have a vision board and I write things on it, and then it's weird because they happen. I'm telling you, Denny, this is crazy. I don't know like what it is. It's magic, but
Well,
so I do
you have good focus. That's what
I
it
do.
is.
I'm very focused.
Yeah.
That's true. Let's see, who was I thinking next? I really want to interview Laura Eisenhower. She doesn't know that yet, but I will be letting her know that shortly, because she is a freaking powerhouse, dude. I saw her talk at Eclipse of Disclosure, and I was like, this woman, yes, 100% yes.
Yeah.
Like, she's so like divine feminine. She reminds me of myself, because she gets on the stage and she's just like, okay, like it just opens up the floodgates, and it's just like,
she's notorious for, like, if you give her 2 hours, she's got 6 hours of material.
I love it.
And that's the way. And then she does try to get all 6 hours in. And it's, for some people, it's just like, turn it off. It's like being like having the fire hose on you.
Oh man, she's so awesome.
So, can I tell you a story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so my first reading with Vidya Frazier, I was a Secret Service agent in my previous incarnation during the Eisenhower administration. I was trying to get information to him about secret societies. And I was waylaid in my attempts to do this, allegedly. And I was let go and then killed. And then I was born in 1957. That's when I was born. So I showed this story as it was written from the reading to her in Mount Shasta. And she saw it, but she didn't know me. And she's like, so she didn't really engage. And I think she was distracted. Okay. So fast forward, many months later, I do a channeling interview with Carl Mollison, and we channeled Dwight D. Eisenhower. And there's a section in there that comes up about Laura that she found much later after we'd done the interview. And so anyway, that's my connection to Laura. But she and I have never really hooked up yet. I think I'm not really sure what it is. It's public now, right? It's public. So hi, Laura. but so I'm kind of like waiting for when the time is right, when she feels comfortable about engaging over this. She's mentioned the interview, and she's mentioned Carl and stuff, and that was one of the first. In fact, I think that was the first channeling interview that I did with Carl, was with Dwight D. Eisenhower. So yeah, but I agree with you. She's an amazing story, and I think there's still more to come around her story that has not been revealed yet.
And why do you think that?
I have those feelings about her and a couple other people. The other one is Elena Kapolnik. There's some. It has to do with the divine feminine and the goddess energy thing that has been suppressed on this planet. And I think there's just certain people that have popped up in my little sphere that I think are going to be major players in that arena, is reintroducing that goddess energy, if you will, back into the world for the purposes of healing. So it's
cool.
It's the reemergence of the goddess energy as a corrective.
She was talking about a little bit about that. Sorry. Laura Eisenhower was talking a little bit about that at Eclipse of Disclosure. Actually, that was really interesting.
Yeah.
And so the day of the eclipse, it was really cool because while I was reading tarot, I set up a booth to read tarot, and as soon as those tarot cards hit the table, it was like boom! I had a bunch of people like signing up, wanting reading, so I'm like rocking and rolling, doing readings for a little over an hour, and then it was like Jimmy Church up on the stage, and he's like, "All right, time for the panel." And he's like, "Okay, get all the speakers up here." And I turn around, and he's like, "Teresa, you coming on up?" And I was like, "What? I wasn't prepared for this. Okay, I guess I'm going to sit on a panel now." And so I go up onto the stage and I sit down, and then here's Laura Eisenhower sitting next to me, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, I felt so honored with all the people up there, all of them, but like especially getting to sit next to Laura Eisenhower on a stage on a panel like that. It was really cool. I'm not gonna lie, I was fangirling a little bit. She's so powerful, such a powerhouse woman.
Yeah.
I really look up to her a lot. She's a really big role model for me.
Yeah. I was always hoping she'd write a book.
Well, you never know. Maybe she will.
Maybe you could help her write a book.
I got to write my own book. I got to publish that. I got like a month or two. I got to.
She might be someone who would benefit from a relationship like that. A ghostwriter, somebody to tell the story. Like, I don't know if she's a writer. I don't know.
Ghostwriters are cool. I know a lot of people that have ghostwriters for their story. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff's quite good. Because the content, the content's there, but the person with the content's not a writer. So you have a ghostwriter do the,
right.
There's been some amazing stuff come out that way. So yeah, this story is still developing, so to speak. I mean, and it's okay to wait and be patient for it, because we've just scratched the scratch. We haven't really even started yet in this whole amazing thing that's happening right now that kind of defies words, I think, in a lot of ways. I'm not sure disclosure is the best word for what's going on. In some ways, I kind of think it's been hijacked a bit.
Yeah. Doesn't that always happen? Yeah. So something that I want to do is I want to try to take as much jargon out as possible with what I teach, because when you throw certain words at things, people are going to get hung up. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to become a cohesive human unit. And in order to do that, we have to transcend some of these words because we all think they mean something different.
Yeah.
So in order to reach a mass audience, you got to do that. So
besides Laura, who else?
I could go on and on. I don't know if I want this out in public land. I'll give you Laura. That's your nugget. But I'm sure that you could probably guess all the people on my list. But I do have a pretty long list of people I want to interview. Oh, okay. I'll just leave it at that.
So the danger is that they would say no if they knew that you.
No, it's that I have a method to my business, and I am always very careful about what I put out into the public, because there's a certain, I hold myself to a professional standard, and I want to make sure that I'm following a certain flow, and I want to be respectful of other people.
Oh, okay. So ask first, then talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. It's not, I don't want to, I'm not like a super public person with all of the projects that I have going on. Okay. What my MO is to do is to like make sure the project is completed and ready to release. Then if you're going to do some kind of marketing and advertising, that's fine, but you want to make sure the product's done so that you're not promising something that you can't actually produce. Oh, okay. So I have all kinds of different, tips and tricks or strategies that I use there. Yeah. And it's been really good for me so far. And I've learned the hard way sometimes, but it's all part of the process. And it's a little bit naive to think you're going to get through all this without making a few mistakes, right? Well, and the mistakes are the best part. That's what I think, because through your mistakes, you refine, and now you have a nugget of wisdom that you can not only use for yourself to implement, but now you can take that to other people and teach other people. Yeah. I really want to interview Jacques Vallée. Who's that? He was a friend of J. Allen Hynek, and he would, if you remember the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, they portrayed a French scientist, a French astronomer that was there when the spaceship landed at the end of the movie, and they had contact.
that character was modeled after Jacques Vallée. And J. Allen Hynek was the guy who said was running cover for Project Blue Book with the U.S. Air Force when they had their repository of all the public sightings of UFOs. And he went up to, I can't remember if it was Michigan or Wisconsin. They had a sighting up there, and he was the guy who became famous for saying that, well, what they saw was swamp gas. And so when Project Blue Book was shut down, J. Allen Hynek, when it went, that he was no longer in their employ, and so he became an academic, an astronomer who said, we need to look into this alien thing seriously. It needs to be an item for serious research. And so he collaborated with Jacques Vallée. And Jacques Vallée is one of those researchers that I just mentioned earlier, and has written some fantastic books about this whole alien agenda, alien encounter thing. And he was at Contact in the Desert. Joshua.
Nice.
And he was the fish out of water. Very much so. So he was the only workshop that I went to. And his presentation was 3 alien encounters that were heavily documented by, official civilian and government sources, I think. One was an ancient sighting. One was one that happened back in the 80s or something. And one was, I think, more current. And he went through an analysis how the conclusions drawn from all 3 of those were incorrect. And it was fascinating.
And good luck.
Yeah,
that would be cool to snag that interview.
Yeah, he's very sober academic. Yeah. And his background is astronomy and I can't remember the rest of it. But if you can lay your hands on anything he's written, read it, because it's an eye opener. And a lot of it's like 30 years old, and it's still holding up today.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, good luck. I hope you snag that interview. That would be awesome.
Yeah. He lives in San Francisco.
Oh,
just down the road.
Go knock on his door.
Oh yeah! I have a volunteer! Yay! So Justin and you and who else is working with Stillness in the Storm on the internship project?
So our first intern, we just announced this actually, I think yesterday, but it's Sterling Nicole Bennett.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. So she has a YouTube channel, Beyond Disclosure, and we've been working, I've been talking to her now for a little bit of time. We came in contact at Contact in the Desert. This is actually kind of an interesting story how I met Sterling, because I had written an article for Stillness in the Storm. And in this article, I was talking about Corey Good's workshop, where it was like a round table where him and Roger Richards, Justin Deschamps, Jordan Sather were talking about disclosure and what to do in the world, how to bring it about, all kinds of cool, interesting stuff. And the energy in the room was so new and exciting and intense, because a lot of the people that were there for this workshop were already making huge waves in their own communities. They were already putting together projects, doing things that were very beneficial to society. So it was really cool. And then Sterling actually stood up to ask a question, and she asked about starting a YouTube channel. She said, I just wanted to know what that process looks like for you guys, and if you could give some advice to people wanting to start a YouTube channel or whatever. And anyway, I took that quote and I wrapped it up in the article that I had written about this, about Contact in the Desert. And she reached out to me and she said, "Hey, how cool is it that you quoted me in your article?" Because she said, "Hey, I said that." It was really cool. And so we started talking, and then we met, for real, I guess, at Eclipse of Disclosure. Her and Sabrina were doing their campaign, the I Believe campaign, where they were taking videos of people saying that they believed in extraterrestrials, that they're on the planet, and that. Do you know about that?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that.
What about it?
I don't get that. I was just flummoxed as to why that would be. I mean, to me, that presents more questions than it answers. I just I don't know. It was kind of disconcerting in a way. I mean. Oh.
Well, maybe that's something you could take up with them.
Well, no, I'm just curious what you think about it. I mean, because there's a lot of. I'll ask other people too. I'm not shy about it. But it just seemed like okay, I believe in aliens. Have a nice day. And I'm like, well, what do you believe? I'm like, wait, we're not done here. And
Right.
it was just like a litany of like, I believe in aliens, I believe in aliens. And I was like, my fingernails were going into the wood. Like, what do you believe?
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well, I think that if I were you, I would probably go to Sabrina and Sterling and say, hey, I really want to understand more about this campaign. Can you tell me like what your thoughts are and what you're trying to achieve?
No, I'm talking about each person who actually said that.
Right. Yes, I see I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm getting at is, okay, never mind. Maybe we're not on the same page here on that.
No, it's okay. I mean, but you see what I'm saying, right? I mean,
yes.
It's like saying, come in, but you don't open the door.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes. So she joined the team. She's an intern for us. She does a lot of different things, actually. She does some videos. She did a promo video for our False Flags webinar, and she's helping us with some data entry as well. So, yeah. And then I'm actually in the process of interviewing other people as well for that program. So yeah.
Does she live near Justin, or is that?
She lives in Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Near you?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
She's about an hour away from me, so we're not too far.
Does that help, or is it not really necessary? In terms of physical proximity.
It's always nice to have physical proximity, I would say, for sure. Yeah.
Cool.
I used to live in California. I used to live in Santa Barbara.
Really? Oh, that's beautiful there.
So pretty.
Yeah.
Perfect weather all the time.
Yeah, just about. Well, I really appreciate you doing this with me. This has been very nice.
This has been awesome. I've been excited to get a chance to connect with you. Yeah. And if you make it to any of the conferences next year, if you change your mind and want to go, I'm sure you'll see me there.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe you'll go to Eric Reigns' Squad 2.
That would be really cool. I would love that.
Yeah. Yeah, he did a great job. So, thank you again so much for doing this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And we'll stay on the line, but I'm gonna close now and say goodbye to everybody, and thanks for joining us, and I'll be back. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye guys. Bye.